Now, I'm not a man of faith, but as I've grown older, I've increasingly asked myself, do some people simply lack souls? And as a case in point, I give you Suella Braverman, who in this timeline of horrors, which I regret to inform you we remain trapped in, has been appointed, or more specifically, reappointed Home Secretary just a few days after she was forced to resign in disgrace. Now, this one politician, Suella Braverman, tells you all you need to know about Rishi Sunak, his hard-right government, how it intends to govern, and what it intends to do. Now, Braverman was reappointed by Sunak, who, in his grand opening speech as Prime Minister, promised
integrity and humility.
Now, only a week after she was forced to resign for 2 breaches of the ministerial code. Now, these weren't technicalities. In fact, I'd like to call my first witness, Tim Shipman, the chief political correspondent of the Conservative supporting Sunday Times. As he put it, she committed no less than 2 breaches of the ministerial code, emailing cabinet papers from her ministerial account to her private Gmail account, and then to fellow right-wing Tory MP John Hayes and someone she thought was his wife. Oopsie daisy, it wasn't. They reported her. That's why she got in trouble. And then she lied about the circumstances of it to the then Prime Minister Liz Truss. Now, the only reason Braverman has been reappointed to a position she's monstrously unsuited for, it's not because of her talents. She doesn't have any. It's not because it'll be good for the country. Obviously it won't. Is because Rishi Sunak thought to himself, I need to stop Boris Johnson getting on the ballot paper because he might beat me amongst Tory members, given who they are. And if Suella Braverman comes out and endorses me, which she did, then hopefully that will stop that from happening. Now, I know that. You know that. Rishi Sunak knows that. Suella Braverman knows that. So let's just drop the pretenses on this, I think. Now, obviously, she's far, far worse than just one thing which should make her unsuitable for the office she's now in. Many of us have dreams about the world we live in. A world, let's not forget, of terrible cruelty and hardship for so many people. We may dream about a world without war, without poverty, without hunger, without suffering. What's Suella Braverman's dream?
I would love to be having a front page of the Telegraph with a plane taking off to Rwanda. That's my dream. It's
when
my
will that
obsession.
happen?
Oh, I see. It's to deport refugees, some of the most desperate and vulnerable people on the face of the planet, to put them on a plane, so it's on the front page of a right-wing newspaper, to the human rights abusing, impoverished state of Rwanda. Now, she also wants to go further than that. She seeks to bring immigration down to tens of thousands, and in her sight, she has international students. Now, she succeeds in stopping international students or limiting their numbers. That will obviously deprive a country in crisis of huge amounts of money for the sole purpose of playing to people's anti-migrant prejudices. She wants to escalate the catastrophic failure of the war on drugs, instead of, say, emulating Portugal, which decriminalised all drugs, so drugs can be treated as a health issue rather than a criminal issue, where people with addiction problems can get the support that they need. She wants to make cannabis a Class A drug, which would criminalise vast numbers of people, and we know who those people disproportionately tend to be. They disproportionately tend to be black people who get life-ruining convictions, not Tory cabinet ministers, many of whom have a long track record, of course, of taking drugs, some of whom have confessed to it, and I'd be interested to know the habits of some of the others, both in the past and, well, I don't want to make any specific allegations. She's gunning too for trans people, claiming it's lawful for schools to discriminate against trans kids by saying that they can have their old names used by teachers, by students, that's known as dead naming, to misgender them, to prevent them from, say, using the right toilet facilities appropriate for their gender. And she's made it clear that in the deal she struck with Sunak, that involves continuing the war on one of the most marginalised minorities in the country. As for her speech the other week.
It's the Guardian reading, tofu eating, wokerati, dare I say, the anti-growth coalition.
What an embarrassment. Just a bunch of pathetic cliches churned out by a Daily Mail headline generator. Now, the role of someone like Braverman is very clear. It's to appeal to and stoke up the most toxic and gruesome elements of the human character: fear, bigotry, spite, hatred. And so it brings me to conclude to a speech which I never forget. It's a speech given by a former miner in the classic 1996 film Brassed Off. And in it he says this: "So God was creating man, and his little assistant came up to him and he said, 'Hey, we've got all these bodies left. But we're right out our brains, we're right out our hearts, and we're right out our vocal cords. And God said, fuck it, sew them up anyway. Smack smiles on their faces and make them talk out of their arses. And lo, God created the Conservative Party. And that is Suella Braverman and her ilk summed up to a T. Please share the video, press like, subscribe, including the notification bell. Leave your comments. I'll see you next time.